Hello. Today isn't our usual road test review. No, what today is a little diary, a snapshot if you will, of what it's been like to live with one of the best small EVs on the market. You see, since March when I took delivery of this car, we've been in the middle of a global pandemic, but I've been using this car when I can as my daily driver. So, what's it been like? Well, welcome to AutoEV and welcome to the mini diaries. So, I've been living with this car now for the past 4 months, and it's been interesting to get to know a car like that, because obviously when we have one for road test review just over a week, we don't really get under the skin of the car. We don't really see what it's truly like to live with in both working and family life. And my little level 2 trim Mini has been with me every single day for those past 4 months. So this is what we like and what we don't like about it. The car's main daily duty has been on the school run, taking my little girl up to school, which is relatively close by to where I live, but still along a nice little back road, so it's been a lot of fun. Entry and exit's okay for her, in fairness. The seats go far enough forward, the rear seat's got enough room, certainly for her quite big child seat, and it's got standard fit ISOFIX points on either side and also on the front passenger seat, so that's been quite good. I'm a bit surprised they don't offer it in the 5-door body shell, albeit I don't particularly like the styling of that car, but that would just give it a little bit extra practicality if they offered it with 5 doors as well as the 3. Let's talk about the negatives first, because we can get that out of the way and move on to the kind of good stuff. The first negative we've got to talk about is the range of the car. Now, back in our road test, we said the car was capable of doing a WLTP range of about 145 miles. Many, I think, reckoned you could probably get 120 or so out of the car. You can't. Let me tell you that now. I have struggled to get anywhere close to 100 miles out of this car, and that's a real big downer on the Mini. I mean, the battery size is okay, but 100 miles doesn't seem to be that far. I mean, recently I took the car on a trip up to Mercedes-Benz to drive the new Smart Electric. Now, from my house to Mercedes-Benz UK in Milton Keynes, it's 67 miles. I had to charge the car up before I could come back, and that's not really ideal. Since I've had the car as well, we've got an average consumption of 3.7 miles per kilowatt. Now, anything above, that's the sort of new miles per gallon, but for electric cars, if you will. And really what you're aiming for is anything above 4 is good. That's a good sort of like range of efficiency. And the Mini's obviously not that. It's close to it, but it's not that. Obviously, you've got different driving modes in the car. You've got what they call mid, sport, mid's its normal one. Sport is the sort of sportier, obviously, version of that, where everything sharpens up and it's really fun to drive. And then you've got green and green plus. So obviously you can eke out a little bit more miles, but it's not night and day worth the difference. And I think that's a real disappointing feature of the car, to be honest with you. Especially now when you've got something like the new Renault Zoe that does over 200 miles, close to 250. So on a recent trip up to Scotland, that had me reaching for the keys for the family Land Rover, because it would have added probably 3 hours onto the journey just having to stop and charge it every now and again. So yeah, so that I'd say is the biggest flaw with the Mini Electric that I've seen over the last 4 months. My other gripe is with the looks of the car. Now, back in our initial road test again, we were the first to declare the Mini Electric as being the first EV hot hatch, but it doesn't really look it. They've kind of played it down a little bit, and I've got an issue with this S badge here. The Cooper S Petrol seems to follow different trim levels to the to the Mini Electric, and I'm not sure it should. It should be like the older Cooper SD when they did it as a diesel engine variant of the petrol. Why not just do the same? Why not just make the electric an electric version of the standard Cooper S? But they haven't. They've kind of played it down. Now, you can obviously option it up with yellow flashes around the car and things, which this level 2 car doesn't have. But even so, it just tends to hide its hot hatch pretensions under a bit of a bushel, and I don't think it should. Okay, so enough of the negatives, let's get back on to the positives, because this really is quite an exceptional little car. And the positive is, well, the main one is the way it drives. It's a Mini. Now, I know hot hatches these days are pushing in excess of 300 brake horsepower, and the Mini's got nowhere near that. It's 184, but that's the same as the petrol Cooper S. So it's got a ton of speed. And of course there is the added weight of batteries to overcome, and I get that, but it doesn't seem to make any difference in the actual way the car delivers its power. And of course the big thing with electric cars is that instantaneous slug of torque you get right at the bottom end. I mean, this thing just scampers off the line. I mean, it quite defies me how fast this car actually can be. It doesn't look it, and that's part of the reason I was saying earlier, it doesn't really look like a hot hatch, not in this level 2 trim car that I've got, but my god, it does drive like one. If you go back in time to when hot hatches were sort of like coming out, and you had things like the Mark 1 Golf GTI and the Peugeot 205 GTI, those were cars that weren't particularly big on power, but they were low in weight, and it was the level of grip and the level of intimacy that they gave the driver, and that's what the Mini delivers. That's what it really, really gets you with. It's the level of intimacy as a driver. You know, the steering's got this lovely oily feel to it. You just put it into a bend and it just tracks straight and true. And what really impresses is the way it handles the power being put down. And Mini have developed a really clever traction control system with this car to handle that big, sort of like large instantaneous hit of power to the front wheels. You know, and these sort of like mid-bend, massive big power applications just don't unsettle the car. I mean, you do that in anything else, front wheel drive, and you think to yourself you're going to understeer off into the nearest tree, but the Mini doesn't do that. What it does is it just seems to dig its front tires into the tarmac like a cat digging its claws into your curtains, and just says, right, let's go, and go it does. It really does. It delivers such a wonderful blend of power, but make it manageable power as well. It's not scrabbling around. You don't get out at the end of it with your back all sweaty and your palms all sweaty and you're short of breath. Now maybe some people like that, and if you do, then dare I suggest go and buy an old 911 or old Peugeot 205 GTI. But what this does is make performance accessible, and it seems to just, I don't know, you go a lot quicker in this than you think you're actually doing. It's just got this immediacy to it that I absolutely love in a little hot hatch, and it's there. It's absolutely there. And it's not at the expense of ride comfort. I mean, the ride is on sort of like the harsher side of firm. Well, that's not harsh, isn't really the right word to use. It is firm. But the weight of the batteries, the dampers are tuned in such a way that they compensate for that additional weight without making the car seem to buck and twitch and dip into undulations uncomfortably so. The body control from the car is superb, and of course when you're going through a series of bends, you just don't feel yourself coming in and out of the seat like you did at the Renault Zoe, because these lovely kind of supportive bucket seats. Now they are firm on the side bolsters, and as some of our viewers have pointed out, maybe I should look at my diet, but I don't know, it's just, they hold you well. You put together like a nice little series of corners along, you know, a little A or B road, and the Mini just responds. I mean, it's a superb car for that, and that over everything else makes me fall in love with this car even more. It's just the way it delivers the performance, and you're not trading, okay, yes, I suppose maybe in some respects you are trading a little bit of performance for battery range, but and of course the harder you drive it, the more battery you do use a little bit. But when you flick it between the driving modes, sport to mid to green plus, you do notice quite a bit of difference. Green and green plus really dulls the throttle response down, and it shuts obviously various different systems off in the car just so you can eke out that last bit of battery. But when you're in mid, which is the kind of normal setting, it's fine. It really is. It's absolutely fine. You're not really missing out. It's not that you always have to have it in sport. I mean, it's fun, don't get me wrong. To have it in sport is a huge amount of fun, and it delivers. I mean, by God, it delivers when it's in that sport mode. The throttle response is You know, it's crazy. It's like stepping on a puppy's tail. It really is. It just goes. The brakes are good too. You've got different levels of brake regeneration, as we said in the initial road test. You've either got low energy recovery or high energy recovery, and when you're in high energy recovery, you get that. You can pretty much drive it on one pedal. It's a really, once you get used to brake regeneration in electric cars, it's a really interesting way to drive a car. As I say, and that again helps you on sort of like these twisty B roads where you're not having to dart between sort of like brake and throttle applications. You just lift off the throttle, and it just seems to just get the brakes just right and slow it down just enough for you to set up for that corner, and then a prodigious amount of throttle application just sees you speeding through it. It's really, really good. The level of mechanical grip from the car is huge, and again, of course, because the batteries run in this T shape along the central spine of the car, then across the back seats, you just get this lower kind of weight in the car, and that just helps with the handling. They've really balanced it. So for what they've lacked in range, they've made up for in making the car drive the way it does, and I applaud them for that. I really do, because I'm getting a bit tired of people sort of like saying about electric cars, oh, they're there for economy and they're there to make everything green, and they don't have to be. They can be fun, and they are fun. I mean, the Mini, the BMW i3, the little Volkswagen Up Skoda Citigo, that's a great little driver's car. It drives really well. You know, you've got the Zoe, which, you know, on a nice longer journey can do the long journeys, and you know, once you go over the sort of like the initial sort of like jittery ride, it's, you know, it's a good car. Why shouldn't you buy a Renault Zoe in comparison with, say, you know, a petrol Fiesta? It doesn't matter. It's capable of standing alongside piston engine cars. Stop thinking of electric cars as being just for greenies or just for the environment. It's not. They're there for drivers too, and the Mini's proof of that. If you haven't driven a Mini electric, you really need to, because if you walk into a Mini showroom with your checkbook in hand, possibly looking at, you know, buying a Cooper S, if you're only doing short journeys, I'd really consider the electric, because it's, you don't lose out on anything. In fact, you gain a little bit because of that immediate response from the throttle. And now, as I said before, this car is a level 2 trim car, so it gets various different spec upgrades over the lower level 1, some of which are okay, some of which are fine. It's got this sort of half, it's not real leather, it's leatherette and sort of like tweed cloth in the seats, and I really like that. The level 3 car gets full leather, and I'm kind of getting a bit over leather at the moment. I don't know, it's not a massive thing for me, and I quite like this tweed cloth. It just kind of, it grips you in the seat as well. It helps keep you in place. The driving position again is excellent. The long journeys that I have done in the car have been superb. You know, the driving position itself, you can adjust the seat for height, obviously for rate, you can adjust the steering wheel. You really get a nice, proper, sporty little driving position. You really sit low in the Mini as well, because again they've done the batteries in this T shape. There's nothing underneath the driver and front passenger, so you can get really low in the car, which gives you sort of like that Mini-esque driving experience. It doesn't feel, you're not going to sit in the petrol one and go, oh, this is a bit different. It's not. It's the same, the way they've arranged the batteries in the car. The motor's mounted up obviously at the front, and it's obviously drives the front wheels. You've got this sort of like transmission selector here, which looks like the standard kind of automatic selector you get with park, reverse, neutral and drive. Nice and easy to use. The wheel itself, you know, you've got just the right amount of controls on it. I've got cruise control on this side, and I've got volume and phone on this side, but it's just enough, and it's got a nice size, and it's round as well. None of this silly flat bottom stuff that's pretending to be race cars. It's not. It's nice and round. It's leather wrapped. It feels really good. The level 3 car gets a panoramic glass roof, which I must admit would be quite nice, but it's not the be all and end all. It's Harman Kardon surround system, but the standard audio system in the car is pretty good. I've got a touch screen here for the multimedia control, also as well as the little iDrive controller down here that's familiar if you've had, I suppose, a BMW in the last however many years since they've been out. The only thing that's a little bit disappointing is you get Apple CarPlay, but you don't get Android Auto, and I have an Android phone, and I don't know, you don't get that, which is, I suppose, but it's a bit of a first world problem, I suppose. It's not mine too much. It does Bluetooth streaming, and I've got DAB and a good sat-nav system, so it's all fine. Now, normally, as I say, when we have a car, it's here for a week, and that's it. I get to drive it, and I do the school running it, and that's it. But we had the Mini, obviously, for a length of time, and that meant that my wife was able to drive the car as well. Now, Liz normally drives the big family Land Rover. That's her everyday car. So I thought it'd be quite an interesting take to get her views on what the Mini was like to drive and to live with. Here's what she thought. Hello.
Hello.
You haven't done this before, have you?
No.
Are you alright about it?
Yeah.
Good. Well, look, we've been doing a film about, because we've been running this car. Put your foot on the brake so I can start it so we have the air conditioning on. We've been doing a film on this car, or a video on this car, so we can show people what the car's actually like to live with. And normally, obviously, what happens when we've got an EV, you go in them, but you don't normally drive them.
Mm-hmm.
But you've been driving this one.
Yep.
So I thought it'd be quite a good idea for you to give your perspective of what the car's been like when you've been driving it. Do you like it?
Yeah, I was pleasantly surprised. You know that I like, my car to be taller and slightly more robust, and so I was a little bit more unsure about getting into a car this size, but it's great fun.
So if you were looking at, because you drove the Skoda, the Citigo we had,
correct,
which was a 5-door, and this is obviously a 3-door, and obviously that's the problem when we've got our little one in the car.
Yeah.
She can't get in and out herself, but she's got plenty of room behind her.
Yeah.
Normally when the seat's here, unless you're here because you have the seat quite far back. But what
further back than you?
Well, yeah, obviously, yeah. What do you like and what don't you like about the driving?
So it's a really cute drive. It moves.
Performance-wise.
It really moves. Yeah. And to a point that you don't know, I quite like the braking that it has, where when you take your foot off the accelerator.
Regen. Yeah.
It does take some getting used to, but then once you do, it's quite user friendly. I think the actual look and feel of it is it feels really polished. It feels like there's a premium environment.
Yeah, it feels a really grown-up car for a small car. Yeah.
The sound system's really good. I like my tunes as I'm driving along. And really easy. Well, for things like me, really easy to just Bluetooth your phone into.
Yeah.
Make sure it's picking up on your music, your playlists, etc. Yeah. So overall, for such a fast little car, and actually, what I also felt was very, very safe in it.
Oh, that's interesting.
Very, very safe.
Because I think it's really well built. I think it feels solid for a small car. That's one thing I like.
Well, my cars tend to represent tanks.
Yeah.
So, or and so actually with this, I felt very, very secure. From a point of view of
sister car.
Of the school run and such like. I had no qualms whatsoever in doing the school run in this.
Yeah, you feel nice and safe in it. And in terms of, because this, I really like this.
Yeah.
And what was interesting, this kind of little, did you notice this little illuminated
ring? It showed where the
ring?
Battery was.
Yeah, so when the battery goes on, or the battery starts depleting, this illuminated ring depletes. But then when you change the, when you change the controls, look what it does here. It goes all different colours, so when you're changing that. I mean, that's quite quirky, isn't it?
Yeah, and I'd say on that is that some of the other cars, given that we've also taken one to and from Cornwall, and that had its own challenges, shall we say, I think that with this one, okay, we're in this kind of heightened period and we've been through lockdown with it. But it's been charged 3 times in that period of time.
Yeah, but because we're not, you couldn't take this to Cornwall because of the range. No.
But it didn't give me the same level of anxiety.
But you're only doing shorter journeys with it.
Yeah. No, and I fully appreciate that. But there was it gave me a feeling of reassurance, and I think because you can quite visually see how charged the battery is and how little it's using.
It's nice and easy to tell you know the efficiency of what it's doing. Yeah, no, I really like it. I'm going to be sad to see it go.
I am.
And I've really enjoyed driving it.
Yeah.
And as I say, I was quite pleased that you drove it as well, because I think
I enjoyed it.
It's nice getting your perspective on it, what it's like, rather than just, well, we do this all the time.
Yeah.
For you to drive it and actually say, yeah, it's good, no, it's not. And I know obviously you know what's a good car and what's not a good car. And as I say, you've been in plenty of EVs now. But yeah, I mean, this is what I said earlier. I think the range is disappointing, but it's compensated for by the performance.
Absolutely.
In my view,
Absolutely.
the fun of driving it compensates for the lack of miles it will do to one charge. And because we've only been using it, as you say, locally, obviously since this period of lockdown, we've not been charging it that much.
You know,
so for bombing up to
correct.
The school or whatever, it's dead easy. And imagine driving this in and out of London.
Yeah.
It'd be a lot easier than driving, one of our other big things.
Yeah, absolutely. I wouldn't think twice about it.
And because you're taller than me, obviously, as people might know, you found comfort, space, and
very much so. Very much so.
Yeah.
And to a point that our little one can still get into the back as well.
Yeah. And there's
which is a big
consideration. She's got a seat in
it's a big consideration.
Yeah. No, I like it. I wish we could afford one. Well, I wish I could afford one for me. That would be really nice. But I'm going to be sad to see it go.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks.
No problem.
Right.
So, as my time with the Mini Electric comes to a close, what can we deduce from this? Well, one thing I will say is the positives far outweigh the negatives of the car. Limited range aside, this is a brilliant little car. It really is. I think when you get to the level 3 trim at £30,000, it's tantalisingly close to some very good cars. But the level 1 car at 25,000 gives such an experience for the money. No, I really think it's been fantastic. And although we haven't done as many miles as we'd like to have done in the car, certainly it's time with us. The reliability's been excellent. The build quality's superb. I mean, there's not a squeaker or rattle comes from the car. And as I say, the actual driving quality itself stands at head and shoulders above the rest. This is a really great little EV. No, scrub that. This is a brilliant car. And I'm really going to miss it. Thanks for watching today, and we'll see you again soon. Remember, like and subscribe, and do keep the comments coming in, because we do enjoy some of the comments, as harsh as some of them can be. But it's great fun to read what you all think about us. Thanks again, and we'll see you again. So, you've watched our video. It's now my job to tell you to like and subscribe, and press the little bell button to receive notification of when our next video is uploaded. Sorry, what's that? You want more than just videos? Okay, did you know that AutoEV is also a website? That's right, autoev.co.uk. Not only is it all the latest news, reviews and musings, including motorsport from the electric vehicle world, but we've got literally hundreds of used electric vehicles for sale from dealers up and down the country.